e4, e5, f4.
This old opening leads to very sharp and interesting play. The aim behind the pawn sacrifice is to get rid of the black e5 pawn and set up a pawn center e4, d4. If black puts up an incorrect defense, then white launches a powerful attack. Good defensive lines for black include the counter blow d5 in the center, which made the king's gambit comparatively rare today. The king's gambit is subdivided into the king's gambit accepted if black accepts the pawn sacrifice and the king's gambit declined. A distinction is made in the king's gambit accepted between the knight's gambit, when white plays 3. Coup to f3, and the bishop's gambit, when white plays 3. Gauge c4, the gambit may be declined by playing 2. Gauge c5 or by offering, in turn, a pawn sacrifice 2, d5 counter gambit. Knight's gambit.
E takes f4, knight f3.
Formerly the gambit pawn was defended through
g5.
After
Bishop c4, g4.
black really encounters some difficulties. Another defensive method presumes fast development of the black kingside.
Bishop e7, bishop c4.
But not
Bishop h4, check.
because of the simple reply.
King f1.
The black bishop is inaptly placed on h4, which hampers the development of black's pieces.
Knight f6, e5, knight g4, short castle, knight c6, d4, d5, e takes d6, bishop takes d6.
And black has good play.
d5, e takes d5.
The move
Queen takes d5.
is weak because of
Knight c3, queen e6, check. King f2.
with the threat of 7. Gauge b5 second and 8. Bentang e1.
Knight f6,
In reply to
c4,
black will play
c6, d takes c6, knight takes c6, d4, bishop b4, check. Knight c3, short castle,
obtaining an even position.
bishop b5, check. c6, d takes c6, b takes c6, bishop c4, knight d5.
Black's position is quite satisfactory.
e4, e5, f4, e takes f4, bishop c4.
Bishop's gambit. Weaker is
Queen h4, check.
although white is deprived of the chance to castle, after
King f1, g5, knight c3, knight f6, knight f3.
the black queen is pushed back and white obtains advantage in the center while being ahead in development.
d5, bishop takes d5, knight f6, knight c3, bishop b4,
After
knight f3, bishop takes c3, d takes c3, c6, bishop c4, queen takes d1, check, king takes d1, short castle, bishop takes f4, knight takes e4, rook e1.
Play is even.
Knight g e2, bishop takes c3, b takes c3, knight takes d5, e takes d5, queen h4, check, king f1, bishop g4.
The chances for both sides are even. For instance, the following variation is possible.
Queen e1, queen takes e1, check, king takes e1, f3, g takes f3, bishop takes f3, rook g1, bishop takes d5, rook takes g7, knight c6, knight f4, long castle, king f2, e4, e5, f4,
King's Gambit declined.
bishop c5.
It would be a mistake to play.
F takes e5,
Because of
queen h4, check, g3, queen takes e4, check,
winning the rook.
knight f3, d6, bishop c4, knight c6, d3, knight f6, knight c3, bishop g4.
White's position is a bit more active. It would be best of all for him to play
Knight a4,
exchanging the unpleasant black bishop.
e4, e5, f4,
Falkbeer center gambit.
d5, e takes d5, e4,
A fine move preventing the development of White's knight on f3.
d3, knight f6,
Here Bronstein recommends
d takes e4, knight takes e4, bishop e3.
True enough, in this case big complications arise after.
Queen h4, check, g3, knight takes g3, knight f3, knight d2, e takes d3, bishop takes d3, knight takes d5, knight e4, bishop e7.
With even play. Shigorin, Dado, Street, Petersburg, 1874.
e4, e5, f4, e takes f4, knight f3, g5, bishop c4, g4, short castle.
Shigorin offers the knight sacrifice, the so-called Museo gambit. Despite the big material loss, White's chances are at least no worse than Black's ones. He has brilliant development and a powerful attack along the E and F files. The following moves 5 to 12 inclusive by both White and Black are the best, as is confirmed by detailed analyses.
G takes f3, queen takes f3, queen f6, e5, queen takes e5, d3, bishop h6, knight c3, knight e7, bishop d2, knight b c6, rook a e1, queen f5, knight d5, king d8.
White could play
Queen e2, queen e6, queen f3, queen f5,
forcing a draw.
bishop c3,
Better is,
rook f8,
after which white could continue the attack by playing
g4, queen g6, h4, rook e8,
a mistake. Here the rook will be attacked by white's knight.
bishop f6, bishop g5, g4, queen g6, bishop takes g5, queen takes g5, h4, queen takes h4, queen takes f4, d6, knight f6,
Better is,
rook f8, knight e5, rook takes e5,
by sacrificing the exchange Shigorin opens wide the black king's position and launches the final attack.
d takes e5, queen takes e5, bishop takes g4, queen d4, check, king c8, bishop e6, check, f takes e6, queen d7, check, king b8, queen takes e8, check, knight c8, knight d7, mate. King b8, knight d7, check, king c8, knight c5, check, king b8, knight a6, check, b takes a6, queen b4, mate.
Bronstein, Botvinnik, Moscow, 1952.
e4, e5, f4, e takes f4, knight f3, d5.
This is one of the best defensive methods for black. Were white to play 4, e5, a very strong reply would be 4, g5.
E takes d5, knight f6, bishop b5, check, c6, d takes c6, b takes c6, bishop c4, knight d5, d4, bishop d6, short castle, short castle, knight c3,
More precise here is,
bishop e6, knight takes c3, b takes c3, bishop g4, queen d3, knight d7,
better is,
bishop d2, g3,
this inept move weakens white's kingside. In the case of
F takes G3, Knight G5,
white obtains crushing attack.
Knight B6, Bishop B3, C5,
Instead he should have proceeded.
D takes C5, Bishop takes C5, check. King H1, F takes G3, Knight G5, Queen takes D3, C takes D3, C4,
White willingly puts his bishop offside.
Queen F6, Knight E5, Bishop takes E5, D takes E5, Queen takes E5, Bishop takes F4, Queen H5, Rook F E1, Rook F E8, A4, Bishop E2,
Black starts the final attack.
Queen C3, Knight D7, A5, Knight F6, Bishop A4, Rook E6, King G2, Knight E4, Queen A3, G5,
White resigned. After the bishop's retreat 26. Benteng h6 settles the issue.